Bologna guideline into reality. I'm happy that today's conference managed to assemble participants from all over Europe. About more than 150 people will participate during the 2 days. And people from Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Hungary, Ireland, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Spain, Netherlands, Romania, and Ukraine are present here. And it reminds us how important intellectual discussions on single accreditation of Joint Master is. I am delightful to welcome honorary members of European Union institutions, national quality assurance agencies, parliaments, ministries, Bologna process experts, reviewers involved in accreditation, and also leaders of joint programs, consortiums through all over Europe. As the first day of the event will be broadcasted live online, I also welcome our online participants who had no possibility to join our auditory here at Nicholas Romer's University and will be connected to our discussions throughout their devices. The aim of this conference is to discuss and clarify the obstacles in various countries hampering the real implementation of the AHEA document, European Approach for Quality Assurance of Joint Programs, which was adopted by the ministers in May 2015. I want to remind this honorable auditory that mentioned document had a purpose to ease external quality assurance of joint programs in Europe by setting common standards for these programs that are based on the agreed tools of the AHEA without applying additional national criteria. However, 2 years later, we realized that the situation and certain problems related with this issue still remains. As the implementers of European Joint Master in Strategic Border Management from Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Netherlands, and Spain, we faced difficulties due to different legal frameworks in consortium countries, which complicate and burden single accreditation of joint study program and requires additional efforts and time from all consortium partners. I'm sure that the implementers of other European joint masters through all over Europe face the same problem. I am happy that we are all here today and hope that during the upcoming 2 days we will together search for the answers and solutions on what, how, and when the situation could be changed by relevant stakeholders in amending legislation, guidance, and in changing practices on the national and European levels in order to establish joint programs as a real hallmark of European higher education area, de jure and de facto. Using the possibility, I want to thank conference organizers, Frontex, the European Border and Coast Guard Agency, also the consortium of 6 European higher education institutions and their responsible teams, Estonian Academy of Security Sciences, University of Salamanca from Spain, National University for Distance Learning Education from Spain, Nicholas Romer's University, Rezekne Academy of Technologies from Latvia, and Netherlands Defense Academy Faculty of Military Science from the Netherlands. And also special thanks goes to Lithuania's Center for Quality Assessment in Higher Education. Without the devoted work of those mentioned teams, we couldn't be able to meet today. Before going further, let me wish you fruitful exchange of opinions, thought-provoking discussions, ideas for possible solutions, courage, and patience for implementation. Thank you. And I would like to invite for the opening speech Ms. Françoise Profit, Head of Bologna Follow-up Group Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair, dear colleagues, dear friends. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me today. As head of the Bologna Follow-up Group Secretariat, I am honored to take part in this international conference. The title of the conference, mentioning turning a Bologna guideline into reality, I will in a few words attempt to follow this guideline and see how far it has turned into reality. In 2005, the topic of quality assurance in the Bologna process was raised as one of the main issues, and ministers adopted the first European standards and guidelines. In the Bucharest communiqué in 2012, ministers acknowledged the ENQUA, ESU, EUA, and URASH, the E4 group, report on the implementation and application of the European Standards and Guidelines for Quality Assurance. They ask for a revision of the European Standards and Guidelines to improve their clarity, applicability, and usefulness, including their scope. The revision would be based upon an initial proposal to be prepared by the E4 in cooperation with Education International, Business Europe, and the European Quality Assurance Register for Higher Education, EQUAR, which would be submitted to the Bologna Follow-up Group. They welcome the external evaluation of EQUAR and encourage quality assurance agencies to apply for registration. They allowed EQUAR registered agencies to perform their activities across the European higher education area while complying with national requirements. In particular, they aimed to recognize quality assurance decisions of EQUAR registered agencies on joint and double degrees programs. Finally, they encouraged higher education institutions to further develop joint programs and degrees as part of a wider European higher education area approach. They expressed their will to examine national rules and practices relating to joint programs and degrees as a way to dismantle obstacles to cooperation and mobility embedded in national context. Following this commitment, the Bologna Follow-up Group commissioned an ad hoc expert group to draft a policy proposal for a specific European accreditation of programs that were subject to compulsory program accreditation at national level. In its report, the group stated that the main problems to face were linked with recognition issues and quality assurance. It underlined, as a general rule, that joint programs challenge the existing national quality assurance systems. Institutions from different higher education systems with different political and legal systems, as well as different quality assurance regimes, jointly develop and offer a study program. It pointed out several national quality assurance processes as well. The report also recommended that in a joint quality assurance process, several agencies should work together and agree on a common assessment framework. But moreover, it would be better to propose an integrated process by setting up a single quality assurance procedure which should propose only one agency and one assessment framework for carrying out the procedure. The framework consists of two building blocks: the European shared component the core, and the relevant national component, the plus. Thus, on the basis of the report of this ad hoc group, the European approach for quality assurance of joint programs has been developed to ease the external quality assurance of these programs. In 2015, in Yerevan, the ministers officially made a second step with the adoption of the standards and guidelines in the European higher education area, and they also adopted the European approach for quality assurance of joint programs. This new step should have given a basis for all stakeholders on how to guarantee quality assurance and its twin purposes of responsibility and enhancement. Nevertheless, we can notice that the implementation of the European standards and guidelines is not as good as it should be. In fact, one of the main problems lies in cross-border quality assurance. EHA countries present very different situations with regard to internationalization and mobility. However, and according to the 2015 implementation report, more than half of them lacked of national internationalization strategy or guidance to the various stakeholders involved in the internationalization process. The main difficulty we have to face is the implementation and ability of higher education to be evaluated by non-national qualification assurance agencies. In 2015, Armenia and Austria were the only examples of countries that had opened up the possibility to their higher education institutions to undertake evaluations with a foreign agency. Around 75% of systems had not followed through on the Bucharest communiqué commitment to allow their institutions to be evaluated by ACAR-registered agencies. During today's conference, we will have an update on the situation and we will see the progress made since then. During the period 2015-2018, within the framework of the work plan of the Bologna Follow-up Group, the working group on implementation set up a dedicated session last autumn in France, in Nice, concerning internationalization of external quality assurance in the European higher education area, trying to identify the main trends and developments. During that meeting, the debate permitted to underline the lack of reciprocal understanding by both sending and host countries, the main problem pointed out in that case being the quality assurance framework. The need for a proper memorandum of understanding signed by the host country and the institution operating in it was highlighted. Many other points were brought up during the discussion, such as the lack of a common language or the very different levels of English of the people involved, the legal aspects as well as the cultural differences, the connection between cross-border quality assurance and high financial costs. According to a recent ENQUA study, most cross-border activities of quality assurance agencies are self-funded. It was underlined that cross-border quality assurance creates an opportunity to think out of the box and to share experience, and poses new challenges and motivation to mobile agencies. Considering the diversity of the problems and the diversity of specific national criteria, we understand why we will today and tomorrow work to improve accreditation practices of joint programs, and more specifically around the European Joint Masters Programme in Strategic Border Management. I truly hope today and tomorrow's discussion on challenges, problems, obstacles and actions needed to implement single accreditation of European joint programs will help to put European higher education area policies into practice. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, dear Françoise Profit. And now I want to
introduce you Ms. Mette Mørk Andersen, Policy Officer, Directorate General for Education and Culture, European Commission. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, from my side as well, and thank you very much for the invitation to speak at this conference. I didn't bring a PowerPoint presentation. I simply just want to show you this one slide, because it's the reason for our existence a bit, no? In the Director General for Education and Culture. It's what we work so hard on trying to stimulate and promote every day, and what we are discussing today and tomorrow is a very important contribution to what Erasmus and the Erasmus Plus program is all about. So I just wanted to, this morning, remind everyone about the perspective, definitely from my starting point, for coming to participate in this conference and for doing the work we do on quality assurance and accreditation at European level. We know from an Erasmus impact study we made some years ago that Erasmus helps broaden your mind, and it helps to improve transversal skills that are extremely valuable for students in society in general, on the labor market, and also for personal satisfaction. Mobility and internationalization is very important for not only the individual, but also for European values to thrive better. So any contribution to that is, of course, welcome, and joint programs is certainly part of that. We also found out through this study that bonding over a beer is and can be one of the most valuable experiences for a young person in their student life. And of course, it's about much more than that. I'm not neglecting that part at all. I mean, it's about more than dubious accommodation and what you can engage in after the sun sets. But it's still an important part of it. Erasmus is about what is sought after in society in general, and on the labor market, of course. We know that critical thinking and intercultural understanding, a broad academic understanding, is stimulated highly through international experience. It helps expand your personal horizons for sure, and all of this can be gained through mobility and some sort of international experience. And I'm personally very happy to see Professor Norma Ryan from UCC in Ireland, where I did my own Erasmus stay. So it was, of course, an extremely valuable experience to be taught by very, very competent, some of the most competent professors I've ever met in my life on the fascinating Irish history. But I also know everything about dubious accommodation and how much you thrive together with fungus in your window when you do this mobility stay. Internationalization, of course, takes a much broader form than just mobility. And if we look at the 30 years of the European program, it's gone from very much focusing on this individual experience to what internationalization is about. It is about ensuring quality, of course, in higher education, also through the joint degrees. We need to ensure that students that enroll in these joint programs, that they are exposed to programs of high quality. And of course, all of you in this room today are completely aware of this mission and supporting that. There seems to still be a tendency to think that single accreditation prevents this quality in higher education, but that is exactly the culture that we need to move away from, and what we are trying to reach or to do with the European approach that we adopted in Yerevan a few years ago. But there is definitely a challenge, and I guess it's also one of the reasons why we are meeting again today. Single accreditation can help improve the standards and help, as Françoise also mentioned, remove some of the more historical and culturally rooted barriers to accreditation. There are some people here in the room, many people who are much more familiar with the details of how to do this, and it's good to see that we'll hear from several of them during the two days here. What do we see from our European perspective then in the Commission? We see that the joint programs are a very special measure to ensure quality through some international commitment. They can bring internationalization at home, and they can pool expertise for a better systemic impact, and of course for the quality education that we so want to provide for students, society, and the labor market. They can, if there's a mobility period incorporated, offer a very extensive and very intense mobility period. And we know that the longer mobility lasts, the more you can really reap the benefits of it. So from our side, we would of course like to see more joint programs inside and also outside of Erasmus Mundus. And we would definitely welcome more single accreditation. It can appear that the quality assurance procedures and the accreditation behind joint programs are still too burdensome. I know that others will address that today through a very valuable project that we have supported. Another question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we then, through our cooperation in Bologna, try to support single accreditation better? I think we need to be honest and say something has been done since Yerevan, but maybe not as much as we could have done. There's still a lot of potential here in this area for us to work a bit more intensive together in Bologna. But I mean, the Paris communique is coming up soon, hopefully in 2018. Let's not jinx it. So maybe this is one issue we could look a bit more at. We also have, of course, the financial means through Erasmus Plus to support this. And there is an autumn call coming up again for the ministries responsible for higher education. We know that some countries have requested funding previously to support activities that promote single accreditation for joint programs. And we would, of course, welcome if we could see more of that from more countries. Pooling the resources to create a joint program should also mean pooling measures behind ensuring quality. And it's the last element that we need to focus a bit more on. It requires a trust, of course, but I think in Bologna all the tools that we adopt are especially about that. They are about developing a similar understanding of what quality higher education is, and to help support the trust that quality assurance agencies they need to maybe also trust each other's work a bit more than we see at the moment. With Erasmus Mundus, we changed the rules a bit, and some of you might not be happy with what I will say, but we changed them to promote single accreditation better. What we saw was that we would have applications for Erasmus Mundus projects, and the quality assurance, the accreditation of the programs would follow after the funding. It meant not only a delay in these programs, but it also meant that we saw a few really good consortia fall because the lead partner ended up not getting the accreditation. So we had to change it so that now the accreditation has to be in place before you apply for the Erasmus Mundus projects. We know that this can clash with national legislation, but we had to somehow try and get rid of the more speculation we saw with applying for this funding. And it was also a way, of course, for us to support that some of the red tape we see in countries for single accreditation, for trusting each other's quality assurance better, was removed. So we hope that it has aided you in exactly doing that. So what is to follow for hopefully the next 30 years? At the moment, we are in a very interesting phase. We are going through the midterm evaluation of the current Erasmus Plus program, and we have, of course, already begun thinking about the next program. Everything has to be set with a certain uncertainty, because it is down to policymakers and our political decision makers in the end. But still, we have an open consultation at the moment where we are collecting as many views as possible on the current program. What is working for you? What is not working? What would you like to see in the future? I have to say, if you haven't replied, you need to be a bit quick, because the deadline is tomorrow. But hopefully you have already thought about this. Nonetheless, the Commission is always open to hear your opinion on the program. So fear not if you didn't make the deadline tomorrow. We're always happy to hear about your experience and how we could potentially improve the program for you. A new proposal will follow sometime next year. The midterm evaluation will be ready later this year. But of course, in the field of higher education, we have started to look at the trends, the challenges, the tendencies in Europe already now, to see if, apart from the individual mobility, what is needed to support, to really stimulate quality in higher education throughout Europe. And I'm not sure, because I'm a bit jet lagged, it's around 10 o'clock here. That means it's 9 o'clock in Brussels. So hopefully, within the next hour, the college will adopt the revised agenda for higher education. For those of you who are not completely familiar with this concept, there is already something we call the modernization agenda for higher education that was adopted in 2011. What will hopefully follow in an hour is the follow-up to that agenda. We call it a revised agenda for higher education now. This is also to say that modernization is, of course, happening, and we're not suggesting it's not. But this is a revised agenda. Without jumping too far and without really jinxing the adoption and the Commissioner's presentation of it, I can reveal that we, at this stage, expect that the focus will be on tackling future skills mismatches, but also promoting excellence in the skills needed for young graduates to thrive in society. It is about building inclusive and connected higher education systems. It's about a regional outreach, that you as an institution relate to your regional surroundings, being of course aware about the global context that you function in. And if anything, joint programs do that. We would also like to see or support that higher education promote or help contribute to more innovation in society. And this is of course done through a better link between education and research, and again, cooperating with your external stakeholders. And as previously, the Commission, of course, will still like to support more effective and efficient higher education. Everything has to be said with a disclaimer that people who are, much finer than me have to adopt this within the next hour. There is a clear link between the Bologna tools, between the tools that we have adopted to create the trust and this revised agenda. So there's plenty of opportunity for more cooperation between the two fora in the future. So this will be our first indication of where we would also like to see the next program follow. And of course, what we would always be dependent on your support to implement. So once again, thank you very much from my side for inviting me to this conference. It's a very specific conference, and I'm sure that we can therefore dig quite deeper than we have a tendency to do sometimes. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the European Commission perspective and vision for the upcoming years, and also do not miss the deadline of consultation. And now I would like to invite the representative of Lithuanian Ministry of Education and Science, Mr. Marius Ablačinskas, advisor to the minister.
Dear members of European Joint Masters in Strategic Border Governance, distinguished guests, and dear colleagues, it is a pleasure and honor to welcome you in Lithuania at Mykolas Riomeris University on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Science of the Republic of Lithuania and the occasion of this important event, International Conference Turning Bologna Guidelines into Reality. If we look at the implementation reports of European higher education area, we can observe that Lithuania is among the top countries in regard to adoption of Bologna reforms. In Lithuania, we have fully functional system of European degrees and study cycles, a well-developed and fully accredited external quality assurance system, continuous and targeted discussions on empowering student-centered learning at our institutions. And nowadays we are in the process of installing short-cycle studies in our system of higher learning, higher education learning, and vocational training. An important feature that distinguishes our higher education system in international openness, yes, we are among the few countries that fully allow registered quality agencies of other countries to evaluate our study programs. And this evaluation is recognized without limitations for our national accreditation. We have a very good progress in widening the offer of international study programs of various types of our higher education institutions, and are keen to welcome more international students and teachers in our country. That is why we are very proud of the initiative to foster the implementation of one of very practical and notwithstanding with slow-moving guidelines of Bologna process, single accreditation of joint programs. We do understand how many obstacles in legislations and especially in mindset this can meet in such rich and different higher education system of our Europe. In the same time, we are deeply convinced that this is one of very important drivers of the unification of European higher education area that we are enthusiastic about. So, on behalf of the Vice Minister of Lithuanian Education, of the Ministry of Lithuania Education and Science, Giedrius Viliūnas, who are former Vice Rector of Mykolas Riomeris University, let me thank in advance of this event to Frontex agency that has done groundbreaking work in the area of issue of this conference. And as a representative of the Minister of Education and Sciences of the Republic of Lithuania, Jurgita Petrauskienė, I want to ensure that the Ministry of Education and Sciences of Lithuania is absolutely open and supportive to suggestions and recommendations you will produce. So, I want to wish you a very fruitful conference and beautiful stay in Vilnius. Thank you.
Thank you for the ministry perspective and welcome words. And I would like to welcome Mr. Henrik Warhelm, the head of the training unit, Frontex, European Union Agency.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. The core tasks of the European Border and Coast Guard Agency, Frontex, is to promote operational cooperation among the national authorities working in the field of border management. Interoperability is a clear prerequisite for efficient cooperation. and to achieve a high level of interoperability, proper training and education is needed. Our training mission is hence to support the Member States to achieve a high, efficient and uniform level of border and coast guarding. We aim at promoting a common European border and coast guard culture with high ethical standards. Efforts to develop common European standards for border guarding or border guard training was already made prior to the establishment of Frontex by introducing the common core curriculum for border guard basic training. The common core curriculum has later on been revised, and the 4th edition of this document is to be introduced or launched next month. It took us, however, some time to realize that in order to have as strong impact as possible on the European border and coast guard community, we need to target also the future leaders. At the same time, a gap in the educational system for border and coast guard officers was identified. While master's programs on policing are available in every member state, no such programs on border management were delivered anywhere. To fill this gap and to get the desired impact, the European Joint Masters in Strategic Border Management program was developed. This program is strongly anchored in the professional sector for which it has been developed. It originates from the border and coast guard community, and it's developed in collaboration, designed as a program where the learning has practical application for the ultimate beneficiaries, the European border and coast guards. It was obvious from the very beginning that the program should be made accessible for potential students from all member states. This was one of the reasons why it was considered of utmost importance to achieve a joint award. This proved, however, to be quite a challenge due to the differences between the national regulations on higher education. All along the way of developing the program, we seemed to be close to bumping into walls. The development of the program was indeed an exciting learning experience for all involved in the development. We will shortly have the opportunity to learn more about the program and the sometimes even painful history of developing it. The experiences gained during the development of the European Joint Masters in Strategic Border Management shows that there is still much to be done in order to harmonize national regulations on higher education. I do hope that we, during this conference, will be able to identify some of the obstacles and eventually also find solutions to overcome them. The core of the Bologna principles are, after all, to harmonize and enhance comparability. These principles correlate actually very strongly with the strategic goals of Frontex. What we especially want to do is to achieve interoperability and to enhance a common European border and Coast Guard culture. And in this regard, I believe that what we are in for now is of great importance. Thank you, Mrs. Chair.
Thank you, our constant supporter, Frontex agency, for the welcoming words. Now I want to go to introductory presentations, which we will have 3 presentations. Presentation by Anamona Perez, presentation by Major Pascal Bulb, students representative, and presentation of Inga Juknytė-Petreikienė. And I would ask you to keep your comments and questions for the plenary sessions and also for tomorrow discussions, as we are very strict in time scheduling. So the first presentation by Ms. Ana Mona Perez, Project Manager of European Joint Masters Program in Strategic Border Management, brief history of European Joint Masters Program in Strategic Border Management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, esteemed chair, thank you very much for having us here also and for doing a fantastic job in organizing this conference. The official title is A Brief History of the European Joint Masters. The truly experienced history was a painful one, but really a very exciting one. I had the great opportunity of being the project manager of this Frontex project done in collaboration with a number of universities and police academies from across EU. And maybe it looks like a lack of modesty, but I promise you it was not us who called it a trailblazer. It was a syntagm used by the chair of the panel that evaluated the program during the a briefing, a speech at the end of the site visit. What we wanted with this program, as my boss mentioned earlier, we all know what are the challenges to border security nowadays, and we wanted our leaders of the border guard organizations to think strategically and to find solutions to the challenges of the border security in cooperation, to test these solutions together in the safe environment of the classroom. And we also wanted to model to them, to our future students, we wanted to model cooperation, and we wanted to model strategic thinking in all the steps that we took in developing this program, in delivering the program, and also in the validation of the program. And this was the vision. We had from the very beginning the vision of a joint award. And you see the current consortium partners, Resegne Technology Academy, Mikolas Romeris University, Netherlands Defense Academy, UNED, Spain, and University of Salamanca. These are the ones that are jointly awarding this diploma. I will never have it, as it would be a conflict of interest, so that's the best thing I can get. In association with Estonian Academy of Security Sciences. And you will hear a bit more about how Estonia became an associate partner. We truly wanted to demonstrate in this project that Bologna principles are alive and can be put in practice. And we partially managed to do that. What we mostly wanted was to avoid giving the students a fragmented experience. We didn't want the students to experience different regulations, different approaches of different institutions that would put together pieces of something and have them in a classroom. We wanted to truly offer them harmonious and unique experience that they could take back to their organizations. So unity and not multiplicity. It was a long journey. It started towards the end of 2011, and we are here now very close to the graduation ceremony of the program. And just a couple of months ago, we had here in this room the dissertation defense, which was a culmination of the efforts of over 5 years. And it took monthly meetings of a consortium working group, consortium agreement working group, procedures and regulations working group, curriculum working group, many people that sat together and thought about the future students, what would be the best learning experience for them? How can we create a program that truly reflects the European values that we want to promote? It also took several consultations with the accreditation and quality assurance agencies of the consortium, or the prospective consortium partners. And we are truly grateful to the openness that they showed us. They accepted to attend some meetings that the consortium organized to give us advice on how to achieve a happy compromise and how to find solutions to the sometimes really irreconcilable differences between the national systems. So we had 2 meetings with the accreditation agencies of the prospective consortium partners, and we also offered ourselves as a pilot for the JOCAR project in experiencing a joint accreditation, well, a single accreditation of the joint program. We also went through a mock validation where we had experts that were usually working with European Consortium for Accreditation and with other accreditation agencies, members of ECAR, who evaluated us using the ECA assessment framework. We wanted to be very well prepared for the real accreditation. It was a lot of work done to implement their recommendations, which were very good. It took also many, many letters to the ministries of education of some of the prospective consortium partners. It took visits to the ministries of education from our side, from Frontex and the consortium. And it took many meetings of the governing board of the consortium, which is formed of the heads of the consortium partners. These were the people, these were the brave pioneers who found the strength to go on and on and on despite of all the challenges. And as Henrik Varnhem mentioned earlier, we didn't have the luxury of existing programs in master's programs in strategic border management or even border management, so that we could have put together pieces of curriculum, of curricula, harmonize it a little bit and create a program. So when we were thinking about what do the border guard leaders need to know, what are the competencies that they need to perform their job, we had to develop a sectoral qualification framework for border guarding to find out what is the learning required, what do they need to do the job at this level. The job competencies level 7 were the basis for defining the learning requirements of the program. And we knew that this is what they truly need, the border guard officers operating at strategic level from border guard organizations across EU, because the sectoral qualification framework was validated by all member states' border guard organizations. So we knew that the learning is relevant for the job across Europe. And there were many countries, many border guard organizations and universities that nominated experts to this project because they believed in this project. So the group that developed the curriculum went far beyond the consortium partners, institutions. And as you may figure, we are a bit different than the usual joint degrees, not only through the joint award, but also because we have 6 academic partners who deliver the program, but we have students from, ideally, 27 countries. For now, we had from 19 member states and Schengen-associated countries. So our students didn't really have a home university, but Frontex was their home, hopefully. Pascal will tell us later if we manage that. Consortia tend to have similar providers. We had all kinds of different institutions, from very much research-oriented to very much police professional-oriented universities. So the biggest question was how to ensure a quality program. And there were many decisions to be made, and we made all these decisions in the light of and aiming to embody the culture of jointness. And that was applied in the way that or that was guiding the process for developing the consortium agreement, the policies and regulations of the program, because we wanted to have one single set of regulations We didn't want the students to have different, to be exposed to different regulations in each of the different consortium partners. So we developed one big book that Inga has on her desk, and she will show it to you later. And we also developed a quality assurance structure that would ensure that the program and the consortium functions properly. Please take a good look at this slide. These are the pioneers, the ones with whom we started. Estonian Academy of Security Sciences, Garda College from Garda Síocana, Ireland, University of Malta, UNED Spain, Netherlands Defense Academy, Romanian Police Academy, University of Salamanca, and Resegna Technology Academy. And one of the main, and actually the first decisions that we made was, what kind of consortium do we want? Do we want the easy way with a consortium that would have a leading partner? And we had many very good candidates for a leading partner, so that the program would be accredited to one national set of regulations. Or we want the hard way, we want the complicated way, we wanted the impossible way of having all academic partners as also awarding partners, and having Frontex as a central coordination point. We thought that this is more in line with what we want for the students, and again, the values that we want to model. And it was not easy. As a result of that, we developed what we call the mini-university structure of the consortium. So we replicated all the functions that the university would normally have at the level of the consortium. We have a quality assurance committee chaired by the quality assurance officer of Lithuania, of Mykolas Romeris University. We have a program board that is responsible for implementing the program, board of examiners, governing board, who is the equivalent of the academic council or senate, and all the consortium partners, including the associate consortium partners, are represented in this board for a shared distribution of the tasks and responsibilities, and also the joy and the pride of running this program. And this was one of the governing board meetings that took place here in Vilnius, and you could see our dear Vice Minister for Education, Professor Giedris Viliunas, who was chairing at that time. Decisions, decisions, decisions. These were the painful ones. And apologies for getting into details, but you have to hear a little bit from the pain that we experienced. How many CTS for a master's program? 90, said most of the representatives of the consortium partners. How many learning hours per credit? Well, we had Netherlands, which had the highest number of learning hours, so it had to be 28. That's why you had to study so hard. How many CTS per research project? Very different limits, maximum, minimum. Through Malta, who was at that time a prospective consortium partner, we ended up with 30 credits for the dissertation. The title of the award, well, and going further, is this a Master of Science or it's a Master of Art? Is it an art or a science? Well, it's a science, said most of the consortium partner, Strategic Border Management, with the exception of Estonia, who said it's an art in our country. So then can we call it just Masters? Okay, we call it Masters in Strategic Border Management. And in the last moment, which was a few months ago, half a year ago, right before sending the award to print, we find out that in the Netherlands there is a very clear regulation where you have to actually put on the diploma the full title. So on and so forth. We wanted to have exit qualifications. We really wanted to offer the possibilities for the students who are so busy that they cannot complete the studies to have a decent exit in the form of a diploma or of postgraduate certificates. Brilliant idea. Unfortunately, Spain said we don't have such a thing, so we gave up. Classification of awards. We don't want to encourage competition. Well, a certain degree of a healthy competition, yes. But we want these leaders of the border guard organizations to work together, not to compete with each other, not to fight against each other. We didn't want to have the awards classified. We finally managed, but with a little bit of more lenience from Spain again. Many, many, many other decisions. RPL. Again, these are busy and experienced professionals, leaders of the border guard organizations. We want to give as much RPL as possible. And Spain again said, well, you can only give up to 50% of the program RPL. So we ended up with 5 ECTS per stage, 10 ECTS RPL, 2 modules in total. Minimum contact time, we have regulations for that as well. Pass mark, we developed a grading system of the consortium, and then a translation device, a translation formula on how to, for recording the grades in the national systems, which again are different. External examiners. We really wanted to have external examiners because these are objective eyes that will ensure, that will look at what we are doing, ensure that the procedures for the assessments are valid and well applied according to the prescriptions, and that the coherent standards are applied across the consortium. And one of them is here today with us in the room. Joint awarding agreement. Is this how we can describe what we need to have on the parchment? And here it comes the more painful part, because finally we managed to harmonize the previous ones and found a solution that would fit everyone's regulations. And during a consultative meeting with the accreditation agencies where the representative of Estonia was on the screen, she joined online, we found out that in Estonia there is a regulation that says in a joint degree, in a joint program, each consortium partner has to deliver at least 20% of the program, which upon a simple math means that you can only have 5 consortium partners. Seriously? We had more. And we want more still. And it gets more painful now. Entry requirements. Romania, Latvia, Estonia, and I'm learning now that there are also other countries. You know, the famous 3+2, 4+1. So if our master's was 90 credits, in some countries the entry requirement has to be of a bachelor of 240. Or 180 credits bachelors, 120 masters. Again, our students are high-level leaders of border guard organizations. The organizations would not commit to send these people to a program that will be a full-time program delivered over 2 years. It would have been unrealistic for the target group and for the stakeholders, the ultimate beneficiaries of the program. We thought of all possible solutions to give some RPL for entry. Of course, to extend the program was also explored. It seemed that this will never happen. Joint parchment. If you can imagine how specific are some regulations in some countries in terms of what needs to be on the diploma and also on the diploma supplement. So look again, remember, this is with whom we started. These are the ones who truly believed that despite of all the difficulties, this program worth it. So we lost Latvia, we thought we lost Latvia, Estonia, Romania, and well, the Irish partner withdrew for other organizational reasons. And we looked for new partners because we have a principle in the consortium that we want to ensure that each module can be delivered by at least 2 institutions. So there is always a main deliverer and there is a backup. In case something happens, we can still ensure that the program is running for students' protection. We had some candidates. We looked through the national regulations. We had to make a decision in a very short time. It was right before submitting for mock validation. No, it was after the mock validation, actually. And finally, we found a partner that kind of saved the situation, which happened to be Mykolas Romanis University. So this was the happy moment. The unhappy moment was that, again, for organizational, financial, administrative reasons, University of Malta had to withdraw. And we finally submitted for accreditation, and we were very happy to learn about the JOCAR project and the initiatives of the European Consortium for Accreditation, because we thought this is what we want. This really helps us complete the cycle of showing and acting on a culture of jointness. So we were very happy to present ourselves to be reviewed, for the program to be reviewed by NVAO as a leading agency under the European Consortium for Accreditation Assessment Framework. So from the day when we signed the consortium agreement in June 2014 in Warsaw, to the day that we saw this uniformed gentleman gentleman and one lady, unfortunately we lost her, she's suspended, she couldn't cope with the work. So until we saw the students in the classroom, actually witnessing how they work together, how they do the group work, because a lot of the learning was very much practical, very much interactive. To again the moment where they were working together with their dissertation supervisors to prepare their thesis, and to the actual defense which took place here. It was an unbelievable journey, and sometimes I'm looking back and I'm telling you with all honesty, when I was searching through the old folders to prepare this presentation and to remember all the important moments, I can't believe we actually made it. Our student, who is also student representative in the boards, will probably tell you a bit more about the feedback that they had. I particularly like, I was very happy, and we were all very happy at Frontex to hear that they said the material is really applicable and will have a practical and strategic use. I can tell you that one of the students had as his dissertation thesis the integrated border management strategy of his country, which was supposed to be updated. He used fantastic models, organizational diagnosis, and he made a proposal on how the strategy can be drawn up. And it was approved by the Ministry of Interior of respective countries. So we really met our goal to create the opportunity for our border guard practitioners, professionals, to learn research methodologies, to apply them to improve the border management practices. But a particularly nice feedback was that 1 year ago we started with a classroom full of alpha males, speaking of cultural differences and other issues that were raised today. And I have the impression we are now one big group of good friends. Yeah, you can see some of the work of the Quality Assurance Committee and the students being in the driving seat. They were there running the discussions because we were really interested in what they have to say about the program. And this is where we are today. We have the graduation ceremony in 1 week in Salamanca. And we have two very determined prospective consortium partners, most probably associate consortium partners, meaning non-awarding in a first stage. University of Bologna and University of Applied Sciences, Wiener Neustadt. And back to accreditation, it was called a historical pilot during the briefing. It was called a bravery. We probably, I don't know if I knew in advance what we are going to go through. I don't know if I would have. Probably I would have, and this is what everyone else did because they really believed in the program. And one particular advice from the panel that evaluated the program was, go to your ministries and ask for a statement that says, this institution can award, can co-award, can be a member of such a consortium. And we keep doing that since then. We keep knocking on the doors of the accreditation agencies, as you can see. We keep knocking on the doors of the ministries of education, and our partners from Lithuania had the brilliant idea of organizing this conference so that we can all discuss the possibilities for promoting joint degrees and mobility and internationalization of learning. And one of the mottos of this program was, if you can't find a way, create one. This is what I hope that we are going to do during these 2 days of the conference. Please, if you can't find a way for a single accreditation, please create one. and I wish you good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anamona. Thank you, Anamona, for your constant inspiration and encouragement for the further activities in implementation of the program. On behalf of Mykolas Romeris University, I can say that we are proud being members of this prestigious consortium. Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite, already we have, Mr. Major Pascal Wolf, a student representative from the first itinerary of our common program, Strategic Border Management.
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for the invitation to give a student's perspective on the European Joint Masters in Strategic Border Management. I'm not a teacher or a lawmaker like you. I'm an officer and I enforce the law. But the last 2 years I could call myself a student and really Anamona Frontex felt like a second home to me. Not only literally because I was there more than I was at my own place, but also the group of friends. It was a perfect experience. And next week in Salamanca we will get our diplomas and we really finish this experience. I'll tell you something about my experience as a student in this program, about the advantages, the challenges, and a short conclusion. Well, the selection criteria for the program was the start for me. We all needed the same criteria, of course. Like Anamona told you, the bachelor's degree, English skills, a reduced workload from your sending organization because we all had full-time jobs to fulfill. This was one of the first experiences with the program. This program is combining traveling to all the member states because all the consortium partners deliver the modules in their home university. So it's not only here, it's not only in Warsaw where Frontex is based. No, it's in all the countries. You have to combine the traveling, working, studying, and of course your family life together during 1.5 very intense years. It was an excellent opportunity for meeting new people, making new friends. Next week we see the group together. I'm really looking forward to seeing my new friends again. And it will not be the last time because, well, we know each other very well also in a professional way, and we use these contacts for our professional careers already. And I experienced a very high level in teaching and discussion about it. Every sending organization delivers 1 or more modules in the red line of the program. And of course, when they have to deliver 1 or 2 modules, they'll send the best teachers and the best practices. So it was an excellent level of teaching. The advantages for me as a student was a unique opportunity to develop a European level of understanding. Normally, in my normal working situation, I work with national legislation. I know about European legislation, but we never cooperate with the full European spectrum in operations. So this was a very unique opportunity to learn from each other. In the Netherlands, we don't have land borders with third countries, only sea border and air borders. So these experiences from my colleagues who share land borders with external countries were very useful for me. We could develop new ideas, because when you combine the ideas and the practices from all the countries, you learn new ways to face problems, European ways. It was a great opportunity. And for myself as a student, but also now as a professional after the master program, I created a professional network and I'm still using it. The challenges, it was not only a party, of course. You had to combine study and work, and this European program demands travel. You have to be aware of it if you demand your students to be in every member state a week, a month. And it was challenging, but of course also a lot of fun. Language skills. English was the language of the program, and of course we all had this English test before we could attend the program. But there were some difficulties in reaching these skills, and it's very important not only to read and write proper English, but also to mingle in discussion and debate. Because if you're not very secure about your level of English, you will not participate and you will not contribute very valuable ideas because of insecurity, and that's a pity. So English skills are very, very important also for the academic debate. And one of the challenges, of course, is my standing organization. They had to lend me for 1.5 years, 1 week a month, and then the dissertation phase. Every night I was working in my room on the dissertation. So involve your organization and your family before you contribute to this program, because you need to make clear agreements with your standing organization. I think this European Joint Master is much more than a regular master. Because of the broader European spectre, the friends and the experiences of all the other member states. It's an excellent way to develop new European standards and integrated approaches. We were the first iteration to do research and write dissertations in this field of border management. So the topics were numerous. We could pick every topic we wanted because there was not much prior academic research in this field. So there's a lot to research in the next years and to develop new European standards and formulate integrated approaches. This program was really combining the best practices of national teaching and research, and it now starts creating a European professional and academic alumni network with more to come, we hope. And of course, Frontex and the European community and our member states, standing organizations, can profit from all the research and the dissertations. As a matter of fact, next month I'm going to the Frontex headquarters to develop a human resource strategy I researched, I wrote about in my dissertation. So Frontex and the member states are really using the outcomes of the dissertation. So that's also very productive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Pascal. And last but not least, and very strict person, Dr. Inga Juknytė-Petreikienė, Chair of the Quality Assurance Committee of our Joint Masters Program on Strategic Border Management, and she will give the presentation on the challenges for single accreditation of joint programs, the case of European Joint Masters Program in Strategic Border Management.
Thank you very much. Dear honored guests, dear colleagues, it's my pleasure to greet you here at the event that builds on the efforts of European Joint Master Program in Strategic Border Management Consortium and Lithuanian Quality Assurance Agency to discuss on the common vision and the real practice of single accreditation of joint programs in European higher education area. I dare to say that this conference takes place at the right time for practical and immediate implementation of all the good ideas embedded in the European approach for quality assurance of joint programs before the next ministerial conference, which is going to be held in Paris in 2018 in May. 1 year left to realize the progress by turning this Bologna guideline into reality. Accreditation of joint programs is complex and involves many parties. Therefore, the first day of our conference is concentrated on reflecting and assessing where we are now, where we stand, and whereas the second day will be dedicated to a detailed discussions of the next necessary steps towards achieving progress in single accreditation of joint programs. By this presentation, which was inspired by European approach, I will briefly reflect our as consortium observations on challenges faced within the initial accreditation of our joint program and pitfalls for the forthcoming accreditation. And I will try to explain why we decided to invite more than 100 stakeholders of European higher education area from 18 countries to discuss both the common European policy regarding the single accreditation of joint programs and the case of European Joint Master Program in Strategic Border Management. In other words, on the specific experiences and legislations of particular countries. As it was already presented by my colleague, Anemona Perez, the development and initial accreditation of our joint program was a really challenging activity, which cost a lot of international efforts and last almost 5 years. Even so, the experience of our joint program students presented by Pascal shows that the joint program, while being a challenging form of provision, can also be extremely rewarding for all parties concerned, students, teachers, higher education institutions, and employers. Looking at the history of Bologna process, it was really done a lot in respect of joint programs development and implementation within and outside the European higher education area. Many European countries have by now included joint programs in the national legislations. The question, however, is whether the introduction of joint programs into the national legislation is quite enough to meet the needs of single accreditation of joint programs in practice. Unfortunately, qualitative and quantitative research data that would be useful is especially limited in the area of what particular challenges within the evaluation and accreditation procedure are faced by agencies and consortiums of joint programs. However, I am quite sure that still the most common practice regarding accreditation of joint programs is that one joint program has to undergo separate accreditation procedures in all the countries concerned. And now the challenge is not to agree open the need in single accreditation. It's already done by the endorsement of European approach in 2015. Now the challenge is rather to find ways within the national legal frameworks to carry out single accreditation procedures. I am sure that 2 years after Yerevan, accreditation of joint programs continue to face challenges coming from different regulatory frameworks and legislations of European countries. Statement that problems are mainly rooted in the different national legislations in Europe and the still existing heterogeneity of quality assurance regimes in the countries concerned, published by ECHA in 2010, and almost the same statement published in 2012 in ENQA workshop report, is still relevant. And if we would change the date of this statement into 2017, in some European countries it would be in line with reality. And I can ground it on the case of European Joint Master's Program in Strategic Border Management Consortium countries, existing legislation and other regulation in respect of programs evaluation and accreditation procedures. There are some our observations on the national legal differences in the evaluation and accreditation procedure of programs that proves that quality assurance agencies across Europe operate within different legal as well as cultural frameworks, and that in the viewpoint of consortium complicate and burden single accreditation of joint programs in our consortium countries. I hope my comments will not be considered as attack on any country or its agency. These are just our observations based on our real experience, which we want to share with you today. The first is ability to choose a foreign agency for the accreditation of the program. Not in all our consortium countries there is ability to choose a foreign agency for the accreditation of any program, including joint. In Latvia, there is not accreditation procedure of study programs. We have accreditation of study directions, and by Latvian legislation, there is not allowed to choose a foreign agency for initial accreditation or following accreditation of a program. Accreditation of study directions are done only by Latvian quality agency in higher education. In Spain, only national agencies have a right to do evaluation and accreditation of any program, and in case of our program following reaccreditation, the consortium choice jointly select a suitable equa-registered quality assurance agency, as it is stated in the European approach, is limited. Consortium is bound to Spanish agencies in order to comply with Spanish legislation. We believe that for the real implementation of European approach, it is necessary to make changes in national legislations in all Bologna process involved countries, allowing higher education institutions to request evaluation and or accreditation from suitable equa-registered agencies other than the national, if not for all study programs, but at least for joint programs, it should be permitted. The second point is recognition of accreditation in case the program is evaluated by a foreign agency. In our consortium, only in the Netherlands, accreditation of program is directly accepted in case the agency is equa-registered. In Lithuania, in Latvia, in Estonia, in Spain, approval by the national agency is mandatory. This is accompanied by the requirement, for instance, in Spain and in Latvia, to submit a description of curricula and additional documents of a program only in national language. In other words, the documents will need to be translated. And our Spain and Latvian partners of our consortium for the initial accreditation of European Joint Masters program in strategic border management has to translate up to the 3 kilos. If you will try to lift it, it's really 3 kilos. Up to 3 kilos description of program curriculum and other documents, including consortium agreement. It is quite unjustified, this proportionate requirement in the framework of joint program developed by the international consortium, imposing additional workload for the program administrational and academic staff. Wherefore, we call open necessary amendments in operational procedures in respect of language in case of accreditation of joint program implemented by international consortium. Also, recognition of initial accreditation is accompanied by requirement, for instance, in Lithuania and Latvia, to submit a description of the program in the country-approved program description form. In other words, documents will need to be overwritten, copy-pasted, and sometimes, of course, supplemented by additional information, and it leads to an unproductive duplication of efforts required from higher education institutions and agencies as well. Maybe it seems as particularity, but one particularity plus second particularity plus third particularity makes 100 hours of additional and justified workload. Wherefore, as stakeholders of European higher education area, we call to increase the mutual trust amongst ENQA accredited and ENQA registered agencies and weigh decisions on the quality of joint programs and revise national requirements that hinders the direct recognition of results and decisions of initial accreditation of ENQA accredited and EQA registered agencies without asking any additional requirements to translate documents into national language or to submit them in the different forms in each consortium country. The third, our observation, is differences in duration of the evaluation and accreditation procedure until the final decision in respect of program accreditation. In our consortium countries, the duration of the evaluation and accreditation procedures in case of initial accreditation varies from 3 months to 1 year. In case of following reaccreditation of program, varies from 5 months to 1 year. We have discussion on the two-speed European Union policy described by some politicians. And I would say that we also have multi-speed European higher education area. In some countries, procedures of program evaluation and accreditation are faster, in some countries are slower. The consequence of such variety is that the same joint program in different consortium countries is legalized at different times. It leads to the situation when some consortium partners cannot start the admission of students and implementation of joint program right after the national accreditation and are forced to wait the legalization of a program in other consortium member countries. And especially, it is very stressful situation for consortiums in case when the development and implementation of joint programs are funded by some public programs as projects which are strictly limited in time. Thus, the implementation of European approach on the ground has a vital importance to avoid multi-speed joint programs evaluation and accreditation in different European countries. I believe that topic on sustainable funding of joint programs in European higher education area deserves separate conference. Joint programs are still expensive in most cases. There are a wide range of financial issues in the development and implementation of joint programs. However, today, as our conference is dedicated to the accreditation issues, I would like to point out one sensitive issue for consortiums of joint programs: fee for evaluation and accreditation procedure of joint program. In our case, in Spain and in Latvia, in Lithuania, evaluation and accreditation of any program are paid by the state, except the case when the program is evaluated by foreign agency. Lithuanian higher education institutions have to pay by their own funds. In Latvia, Estonia, and the Netherlands, higher education institutions pay always from their own budgets. And the prices, as you can see, vary from almost 2,800 euros till 35,000 euros. In our case, for initial evaluation and accreditation, it was paid to ECA for evaluation procedure, to Latvia for licensing the program, and to the Netherlands for the accreditation of the program. In total, it was paid around 20,000 euros for the initial accreditation of our joint program. I am sure that this issue is relevant to all consortiums of joint programs. We believe that the payment for the single accreditation of joint program should be single. The consortiums do not have to be obliged to pay twice, triple, or 4 times for the accreditation of the same joint program to each country. Single accreditation procedure means reduction of workload of several agencies in respect of evaluation and accreditation of program, and means cost saving. Wherefore, I believe it is vital to discuss and search for the general mechanism in European higher education area in respect of single fee, which could be shared by all consortium partners for single accreditation of joint program. I think it should be addressed at political level within the Bologna process, and governments must to reach a political agreement, not waiting for several years. All before presented challenges might be more or less managed by international consortium, and in spite of mentioned challenges, European Joint Master Program in Strategic Border Management now is a reality and is demonstrably successful for students and other stakeholders of the program. However, the main pitfall that hinders single accreditation, to be precise, needs to say following reaccreditation of joint program is differences in possible accreditation terms by each consortium country. In our consortium countries, the possible accreditation terms for initial accreditation of programs are as follows. In Lithuania, the possible accreditation term, if evaluation is positive, is the length of the program plus 1 year. For example, if the program total length is 3 years, the program will be accredited for 4 years. In Latvia, the new study direction might be accredited for 2 years as conditional accreditation, or 6 years if evaluation is positive, and licensing of the program is limited by the actual accreditation of particular study direction. In other words, the accreditation of a program is valid until the end of accreditation of a study direction. In Estonia, accreditation is up to 7 years because the accreditation of new program is bound to the accreditation of the institution. In other words, the accreditation of a program is valid until the end of the accreditation of the institution. In the Netherlands, the accreditation term is only 6 years. In Spain, the new master program might be accredited maximum for 4 years, with obligatory interim review after 2 years done by national agency. And in case of program reaccreditation, the possible terms are the same as in the case of initial accreditation, except Lithuania. Here the program might be accredited for 3 years as conditional accreditation and for 6 years if evaluation is positive. Also, it is necessary to note that in the Netherlands, the accreditation term is 6 years. But in reality, the accreditation procedure starts after 5 years. There is always 1 year usually granted for possibility to improve the program in case improvements need to be taken. That's why the process of accreditation should start earlier, almost 1 year than the date of expiry, because there are only 2 accreditation options, positive or negative. So, what are the consequences of such variety for the joint program implemented by international consortium? The situation in case of our consortium is as follows. As it was already mentioned by Nemona, our program initial accreditation was done by ECHA in 2015 in coordination with Accreditation Organization of the Netherlands and Flanders, and an accreditation for the 6 years was issued. The program description followed by necessary documents together with assessment report done by ECHA composed assessment panel were submitted to other national agencies of consortium countries. Although the program was evaluated positively by the national agencies, the agencies issued several national accreditations for different periods. Wherefore, abolished the ability to have the next single reaccreditation of our program due to a different national legal context, in other words, due to differences in possible accreditation terms. So in Lithuania, European Joint Master Program in Strategic Border Management as a new program was accredited for 3 years. In Latvia, it was accredited for 4 years until the end of the expiry of accreditation of a study field to which the program belongs. The situation in Spain is still unclear. The program is officially registered. However, official document with a term of program accreditation validity is not issued. National Agency of Spain, ANECA, not officially stated to us by email that accreditation done by Dutch agency is recognized, including the term of accreditation for the 6 years. Also, it was answered to our inquiry that the program does not subject to interim review after 2 years, according to the Spain legislation. Everything what concerns the process of reaccreditation will have to follow the Dutch procedure. However, since accreditation decision is statutory act, thus bound to the national legal requirements, We are waiting for official confirmation from the Spain Ministry of Education that in Spain, European Joint Master Program in Strategic Border Management do not have to be bound to the national legal requirements in respect of its accreditation period. As long as we have not received confirmation, we will feel uncertainty in respect of program accreditation term in Spain. And in the Netherlands, the program was accredited for 6 years. Consequently, in our case, until the 2021, in accordance with national criteria of each country, we will have to do several joint self-evaluation reports, as program is joint. The first, until the middle of 2018, for the accreditation of program in Lithuania. The second, until the middle of 2019, for accreditation of program in Latvia. Maybe third, until the middle of 2019, for the accreditation of program in Spain, in case it is accredited for 4 years. And fourth, until the 2020, for the accreditation of program in the Netherlands and maybe in Spain, in case it is accredited for 6 years in Spain. And we will have several visits in different consortium countries. We will receive several reports of different assessment panels, and we will have to follow up recommendations of several experts panels, which might be contradictory to each other, nobody knows. Furthermore, the next accreditation term in each country will be different due to already presented differences in the possible accreditation terms, and it re-enters a cycle from which there is no out way. So the starting date of a accreditation differs per country, and therefore the need for the next accreditation differs as well. So as you can see, the main pitfall to the single accreditation is differences in accreditation deadlines per country. Consortium, in order to be able to implement the program, is burdened with separate countries' accreditation procedures, and self-evaluation reports need to be written almost every year. Also, there is a hypothetical risk that multiple accreditation decisions do not point in the same direction. In the Netherlands and Spain, accreditation decisions are of binary nature, positive or negative, whilst in Lithuania and Latvia there is also other possibility, conditional accreditation. This means that in one country the decision could be conditional, whilst in another country it could be either positive or negative. So conflicting different decisions and or recommendations can place the joint program at risk. So this represents a significant burden on institutions and on consortium and hamper the effective and efficient implementation of joint program. Undoubtedly, many more examples from other consortiums can be given. Our program is just one example which can easily be complemented by other examples, since the conference is attended by the representatives from other 6 consortiums. So I believe that in the tomorrow our group discussion sessions we will hear more other examples about different accreditation periods. So one more time, I would like to point out that the differences in the possible accreditation terms, differences in the nature of decisions, and diversity in higher education systems with a focus on the program or study field or institutional accreditation set by national legislation of each country are the main hinders for implementation of European approach. Although the European approach provides a solution by stating that the joint programs should be reviewed periodically every 6 years, and if the decision is positive, it should be granted for a period of 6 years. However, the reality shows that 2 years after Yerevan, there are now changes on the ground in national legislations of European countries in respect of single accreditation of joint programs. And implementation of European approach is impossible without revision of national legislations, regulations, and policies that inhibit the single accreditation of joint programs. So I believe that solution requires some exceptions in national legislations of each country in respect of joint programs. A number of projects have been initiated initiated to investigate and tackle problems of setting up with quality assurance and recognizing joint programs. Many things were really done by initiative of European associations in higher education, by ELWA, by ENQA, by ECA, by EQUA, and others. Those projects have shown that progress has been made, and there are many regulations and tools in place which can be used to facilitate the process of single accreditation. However, even European approach was endorsed by education ministers on paper. In most countries, in practice, still quite some obstacles exist. So therefore, the work on the implementation of a European approach needs to be continued, and the problems can be overcome only by joint efforts, and of course it requires coordinated actions by ministers, by agencies, and by international consortiums of joint programs. Thus, our consortium and the Lithuanian Center for Quality Assessment in Higher Education were very, very happy to host the conference in Vilnius on single accreditation of joint programs. Our goal was to bring together the very best minds and make a break on the ground for real implementation of single accreditation. We seek to provide a forum for fruitful discussions and search for the answers in order to build foundations for the real implementation of European approach. So this conference gives an excellent opportunity, considering the experiences of conference participants from different national contexts and fields of activities, to discuss these issues. Due to limited time, I will not talk about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I kindly invite all of you actively participate in the discussions on obstacles remaining for single accreditation of joint programs, and share your insights in addressing present and future, maybe future challenges. We are looking forward to the ideas you will propose in the tomorrow's discussion sessions, and I hope that you will present and discuss various viewpoints and experience and suggest some pragmatic solutions for the existing problems. And I hope we will generate agreed ideas on how, in existing and accepted diversity in European higher education systems, reinforce the implementation of European approach on the ground. So I wish all of us many interesting moments, inspiring discussions, and I believe that at the end of the conference, we will provide our joint suggestions on how European approach should be supplemented by recommendations to national governing bodies on what legal amendments must be done, what regulations must be revised in order to remove pitfalls in practice. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Inga, for your valuable insights and perfect identification of problems which we are going to discuss during those 2 days. And using the possibility, I also want to thank Inga for the excellent quality assurance process, supervision of quality assurance process of our program. Thank you. And our opening session came to the end. Unfortunately, we do not have time for comments and questions, but we will do it during the coffee break and also during the plenary sessions and tomorrow discussions. Thank you, honorable speakers, for your presentations. And we are coming back at 11:30 a.m. to this auditory, yes? So.